In today's video, I am going to be sharing with you my 3 ETF pension portfolio. ETF stands for Exchange Traded Fund, and they're a brilliant way of investing, particularly if you're a beginner. A few years ago, I set up a self-invested personal pension where I took old workplace pensions and brought them all together into one place so that I could have full control of my future pension pot and so that I could make investment decisions myself. It also gives me a really clear picture of how much money I have in my pension at present and where it's going to take me into the future. So I have my personal pension with AJ Bell. I did actually have my SIPP with another company previously, but I did an analysis a few years ago and went through all of the fees of many different companies. And for me personally, and my own personal needs, AJ Bell came out as the cheapest option for me, which is why I went with them. But there are many other different SIPP providers available. I actually have a video where I compare SIPP providers. I look at different things like the fee structure, the customer service. So if you want to watch that video after this one, if you're looking to open up a self-invested personal pension, then I'd recommend taking a look at that. But if you're interested in seeing what is in my portfolio today and seeing the gains that I've had and a breakdown of the details, then please do keep watching. Now with AJ Bell, they have a service called Portfolio Xray where you can really dig into the details of your portfolio with them. So I am going to be sharing this information with you. By the way, this video is not sponsored. I'm not affiliated with AJ Bell in any way. This is just the provider that I use and I've been very happy with them. I hold 3 exchange traded funds in this portfolio, and the reason why I went with exchange traded funds is because they're passively managed, they're very, very low cost, and they've provided me with a diverse portfolio with very little effort. Now, I will be honest with you, when I started investing in my self-invested personal pension, I did have some actively managed funds that were very expensive. They did perform very, very well for a period of time. One of them in particular went up over 100% in a year, which was phenomenal, but then they did drop quite significantly. Now my portfolio is solely made up of passively managed ETFs, simply because the research shows that over time they are likely to outperform actively managed funds. It's also important to note that I'm quite far away from retirement, and for that reason I have decided to focus on investing in ETFs, and I do not have any bonds in my personal pension. Now, often if you're getting closer to retirement, it can make more sense to have a higher percentage of your pension in either bonds or either in cash as well. And as an aside, this is not a copy and paste portfolio. Your investment needs are very, very different to mine. Your appetite for risk is very different to mine. So I'm certainly not saying go out and copy this pension portfolio. This is simply me sharing what I have in my personal pension portfolio. Okay, without further ado, let's get stuck into the 3 ETFs that I have in this self-invested personal pension. So the first one that makes up the biggest proportion of this self-invested personal pension is the UBS S&P 500 ESG ETF. So this makes up 38.50% of my SIPP. The code for this one is S5SD, and this is simply the S&P 500 but screened for ESG. So ESG stands for environmental, social and governance. Some people are not very keen on ESG investments, and some people are interested in specifically making ESG investments. But what really interests me is that the 5-year annualized returns for this S&P 500 ESG screened ETF are higher than the 5-year annualized returns for a simple S&P 500 ETF. So not only are you getting those ESG positive benefits, you are also getting, at the moment, better performance. However, that might not continue into the future because past returns, as we all know, are not indicative of future returns. 1-year returns for this ETF are 29.42% and the 5-year annualized returns are 16.44%. The fees and charges for this ETF, so the ongoing charge is 0.10%, so very nice and low, and the 3-year standard deviation is 12.31. When we're looking at standard deviation, you essentially want to go for a standard deviation that is the lowest, where all else is the same with an ETF. A lower standard deviation indicates a lower level of risk. The number of equity holdings within this ETF are 314. So as I said, the top 500 US companies have been taken, then screened screened for ESG, you're left with 314 different stocks. Okay, so moving on to my next biggest holding, and this is the Invesco FTSE All World ETF. This is a standard FTSE All World ETF. A lot of people are invested in, say, for example, the Vanguard FTSE All World ETF. The reason that I went with this option is because the fees were lower at 0.15%. Then this makes up, the code for this is FWRG, and it makes up 38.39% of my self-invested personal pension. The 1 year annualized returns are 22.79%, and this ETF has not been established for 5 years, so there's no 5 year annualized returns. There are 2,416 equity holdings within this ETF, so it is a hugely diverse ETF. And then the final ETF that I have in the self-invested personal pension is the iShares S&P 500 Information Technology Sector ETF. So this is the technology stocks taken from the S&P 500. So you're simply left with the 69 tech stocks that make up the S&P 500. The code for this is IITU, and it makes up 23.02% of my self-invested personal pension. This is probably higher than I would like it to be. However, this has simply happened because the performance has been so strong for this ETF that it has gone up 44.36% in the last year alone. So because of that strong performance, I have obviously ended up with a larger proportion of it in my portfolio. And when I look to rebalance my self-invested personal pension on a 6 monthly or yearly basis, I may reduce the quantity of this investment in my portfolio, but for now that's where it's sitting at. The 5 year annualized returns for this ETF are 25.23%, and the fees and charges are nice and low, again at 0.15%. 3 year standard deviation is high at 19.31, so you can see that that's much higher than the 12.31 that you're seeing with the UBS ETF investment, and that is because this is a more volatile, more risky investment to make. Now at this point in the video, I think it's really important to mention that I am very aware that there is a huge amount of crossover with these different ETFs. So I think what is important when you are looking at an ETF and overlaps and crossover is that you are aware of that. Obviously you can build a portfolio where you invest in ETFs where there is no crossover whatsoever. I feel comfortable that there is crossover in this portfolio, but that I'm also aware of this crossover, and that actually I am going to be ending up with a huge amount of my portfolio in US stocks. So currently 86% of my portfolio is in US stocks. Now actually if you look at a FTSE All World ETF, the breakdown of that portfolio, you're going to be seeing over 60% of stocks are generally US stocks. So it makes up a huge proportion of even a FTSE All World ETF. So I am comfortable with the level of crossover that I have because I'm aware that it is there. But if you are wanting to have a portfolio that doesn't have any crossover, then please do take your time and make sure that that is something that you're achieving. And on that note, I am also aware that this portfolio is very tech heavy, and again that is something that I'm comfortable with. Let's very quickly go over the top 10 holdings within this personal pension portfolio. So obviously I don't own these individual stocks, but they fall into the ETFs that I am invested in. So my biggest holding is Apple at 10.86% of this portfolio. The next biggest holding is Nvidia, which makes up 9.52%. Then Microsoft at 9%, Broadcom at 2.22%, Alphabet at 1.80%, Tesla at 1.75%. Alphabet again, which is obviously Google, but this is the C-class investment, 1.48%. JP Morgan Chase & Co, 1.08%. Amazon, 1.02%. And then Eli Lilly & Co makes up 1%. So for now, I am very happy with the performance of the self-invested personal pension. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it performs all the way up until I'm retired. I'll obviously be making some changes to this portfolio. I do like to review it at least every year and maybe change the allocation of the ETFs, maybe add in some additional ETFs or take some away. As I said, maybe when it gets closer to retirement, I might look to add in some more bonds, maybe hold more cash in this pension. Also, I might look at investing in commodities like gold and silver. But for now, I'm comfortable holding these 3 ETFs in my portfolio. I hope you found this video interesting. Let me know in the comments down below if you are invested in any of these ETFs, or if you have any questions about opening up a self-invested personal pension. If you have any questions questions about self-invested personal pensions, then I will try to help you in the comments down below. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, and have a really lovely day. Bye bye.